backwards. Awesome. We are live. And I am going to show you fantastic things today. I just got my book in the mail. I got it off of Amazon, Pattern Making for Underwear Design by Christina Shin, PhD. This is a really amazing book for someone who has a thorough understanding of how to drop a paper pattern on paper. And I would recommend another book in addition to this one for pattern design on clothing. She does go in the back for briefs and pajamas and garters, corsets, lots of stuff. But as an example, you really need to have a strong background in pattern drafting. I myself am self-taught, and it took a while to get here, but I am able to draft patterns. Let's go on over here. My favorite book for drafting that I've been working with. And I'm not exactly fond of the way it's written. It's a little hard to understand, but maybe it's me. But it's a very nice book to look at. Where's my notes? Here we go. So like, I already made my pants. And I already made my bodice. I need to redo the sleeve sloper, but I'm not going to do that one today. Today, we're going to make our basic block pattern sloper for underwear, for briefs. And then from that, we can use it as a base for creating other types of undergarments, thongs, boy shorts, all kinds of fun stuff. So this is what we will be making today. And you can see that it looks like a lot of algebra. And for what you need to realize is like here where you see like the letters, each letter stands for a specific measurement that's at the front of the book. So I am going to go get my measurements from the front and have them handy dandy with me so that I can just refer to how she has everything abbreviated. There were some other things that I didn't quite understand, and I have to look into it. Let me see if I can find it to show you. Can't find what I was looking for, but you know, she does a good job here on the pardon me, the all-in-one pattern, showing you how you're going to draft the whole block, and then she gives you your ratios of how you need to reduce to allow for the stretch of the knit fabric that you'll be constructing with eventually down the line. So what I'll be doing today on this lovely brown craft paper from Amazon, or you could also get it at Joann's, any art supply store, is we're going to be drafting the panty block pattern. And then from there, I'm working on creating some custom pole outfit for an exotic dancer that I met just recently for a competition show she'll be in. So once I get this made, I can grade the pattern bigger or smaller, and provided that her measurements are fairly symmetrical in relation to the ratio of my own that I'm drafting right now, I can just grade this up to fit her size. That way I don't have to start over from complete scratch again. So with that, I'm going to flip the camera around and you can watch me scratch my head and work extremely hard trying to make my very first custom brief bottoms. So let's flip the camera and put you up here. This is more of an introductory like sampling for myself, just to get used to doing live videos and sewing and drafting. So the goal is that eventually everything just gets better and better. Alright, let's make sure my head won't be cut off. Or does it even matter? We just want to see what I'm drawing, right? So let's put this one away. And I need to get pencils, mechanical pencil, I have a notepad in case I want to write down notes. I sometimes like to rewrite what I'm learning. And look, I have no head. Alrighty. What about now? Does that fit in now? Sort of. Good thing I'll be drawing over. That's over. Alright, so drawing guidelines. AD. There we go. Isn't this nice? I'm going to show you this chart. Can you see it? See, it looks like bars. There's actually information in there. Look at that. It's so tiny. So I will be, you can see the letter abbreviations under my thumb. They go all the way down. And those are what I need because I need to be able to quickly recall the measurements associated with each letter. So I'm going to go into my office and do a quick photocopy. Paper. Bummer. Okay. Can't make a copy without paper. So way off in the corner, there's a Miss Awesome Caitlin K over there sewing, and she has to hear me mumble on and on to a camera. All right. Alrighty, and we're done. So now we have our photocopy. That just barely made it on the page. Did it all the way? Body measurements? It didn't. It left out some numbers. Are they important numbers? Number 1. I am not sure. 1. Well, it only left out the numbers that categorize how many rows there are, which is 27. So hopefully those aren't important, because I got everything else that looks very important on the page. And all right, back to the back. Oh, look at that. Now I'm in frame. All right. Okay. Ooh, and draw the guidelines. AB equals 9/16. Alright, so what I'm doing is bending over like you still can't see me. This note work, this is all, look at that, yeah. These are all my notes from my previous trouser block sloper and my bodice block sloper. So instead of having to do all my measurements again for my bottom half of my body, I'm going to see what I have that works over here that I already took back in the middle of May. And I haven't changed size, so we're going to go with that and then plug it in over here. So she is saying for the 5.1, the brief pattern AB is a cross back. She's using her cross back as 9 inches and 1/16, 9 and 1/16 inches, and then AC is most likely going to be across the front. She has that as 10 inches, 10 and 13/16 of an inch. She clearly has her front drawn slightly bigger than the back, and but not a lot, but enough. Square outlines from A, B, and C, and mark E, F, and G. So basically she's just having you draw a block, like a square. But it's a very specifically sized square. From there, AD equals the waist divided by, I'm assuming 4 times 90%. And then we've got BE equals hip divided by 4 times 90% CF. All right, so AD stands for, see, this is where it gets super frustrating because there is no AD. What is AD? AD, that's A to B. And then that's A. Usually when I have to read other people's books, I have to rewrite it and make it my own way. All right. So the measurements basically that she's given, and just like with the other book that I showed you earlier, the measurements are all taken from estimated model sizing. So if you do not have the size of that model, you're going to have a problem with your end result. So this is why I have to really read the instructions first all the way through and understand why she's using the measurements that she's using and at what areas. And then I need to determine if those are correct measurements for my size. A lot of the measurements you're going to see in the books are determined by the fit factor and also by ease, which is part of your fit factor. So ease is like how much movement your clothing has, or if it's like really, really tight and there's no movement. So with underwear, you don't want to have a lot of movement. Clearly, they just fall right off. So she also has taken into account for the fact that you're working with a knit, and she has you multiply times 90%, I believe, to allow for shrinkage in the fabric, so that when you put it on, it stretches and it fits snugly. But I can't start until I fully understand her letter system. She also has, here we go, she has some instances where, and I've never seen this before in any pattern drafting book, and I'm not really great with math, so she's Like here, mark F, but then she's got a lower 1 next to the F. And then there's other instances where the letters don't have a number 1. Like over here, there's a P with no lower 1, and then over here, it's F lower 1 / P. I mean, what is this? It's like no other pattern book I've ever seen. So I'm going to try and decipher this and rewrite the instructions so that I can create easier replications. All right. So to begin with, let's get a highlighter. And we're going to figure out which of these things that she's already put together for instructions and measurements makes sense. Yeah, see here, she says she's used a size 10 US body measurement as standard. Grading intervals, we've got sizes for the UK, Europe, and USA. She went with a size 10. So for me, I need at least to go down to a size, I gotta go down 2 sizes. I can't use a size 10. Number 1, AB is 9/16 inches. So grading wise, across that, half an inch less, an inch less, 12.5, 9/16. I'm really big into knowing why things are done the way they are, and there's not a lot of explanation of why in this book at all. It's just do this. Caitlin, how you doing over there? Good. All right, let's look at the picture then of what she's creating here and see if we can figure it out backwards. So she has, and like most all patterns are drafted just the half side of the body. So this is just the half side of the brief. So that first center line that we're dropping, the A, B, C, 1, 2, 3, that's a vertical line. So from there, I'm gonna go ahead and drop myself a vertical line. Make sure that you're squared up and that your paper won't move because you do not want everything to be all lopsided. Alright, there's my baseline, and I'm going to mark it up at the top. Let's see. How big is this going to take us? Okay, so we'll mark it to right here is A. And she's taking that line from A to B to C to the front crotch seam. Alright, so that's not so bad. So if you had to figure this out on your own and you didn't like the instructions that she's given you, basically what she's saying is you have to measure from the back side of your waistband, between your butt cheeks, between your legs, all the way to the front crotch seam. that's what that first line is. So what we're going to do that, you are going to need a tape measure. Doesn't have to be a wire one like I've got, but you know, this one's kind of fun. It holds the shape and is really good for drawing curved lines. So what we're going to do is pre-shape it. And I don't have my mirror in front of me, it's like over there. So just hang on. I'm going to go take a measurement, be right back. All the way up to there. Okay. 17. Ooh, that's a big one. All right, so I went over there and I used the magic ruler. Basically, you just pre-bend it and it goes up. You find how high you want your waist to be and you pull it to the front. Check that you're not pulling too hard between your legs. Figure out where your crotch seam would be. Hold your finger there, take it off, and take a look. Mine is at 17. Now, I have mine way high up. I'm using my natural waist, which is the indentation of your body. My pant waist is considerably lower, but when I draft my slopers for pants and everything and my bodice tops, I draft to the natural waist. And then I also use markers that show where the pant waist is and hips and other important markers. That way, when I use my sloper as a base pattern for future designs, I don't forget all this stuff and it's really easy to mix and match things together. So this, in the book, they have 9 inches and 1/16 of an inch, and I'm going to a straight 17. And then also what's going to affect your final length is where you decide the front of your crotch, that front crotch seam is going to be. That's style choice. And so I've got 17 inches I'm going to find on my vertical line. So there's right there. Oh, I got the ruler backwards. There to here. 17. And at the bottom, I'm going to mark this as C, that is A, and I still need to find B. B is the back of your crotch gusset seam. So if you look at underwear, let's see if I can find one. Here we go. There we go. So I did not make this one. I only embellished it, but I bought it. So we're making basically this in essence, right? Just a brief. And we've got, if we hold it in half, we just did our measurement from the top to the bottom. And as what you can see in this one, the gusset, they have it backwards. So they have the seam line for the crotch right underneath the butt cheeks. And in the front, it's all smooth. So there's no seam line right at your lady parts. So that might be something that would be considered important in a design choice. And with this pattern here, the gusset is going to be separate from the front and back, so that it has the opportunity to be joined at any point in time to the front or the back, or eliminated altogether based on how you want to combine your pattern pieces in the future. But for right now, we're just going to have those points identified, and they can always be moved later. Put this away. So the gusset, for example, when you think about how how you want your underwear to fit. I don't know about you, but for me, I always feel like underwear is weirdly designed. Do you feel like that, Caitlin? Sometimes, right? I feel like, I know this is too much information, but I always feel like the covering in the underwear should come farther forward. And it always ends kind of weirdly in the middle. And for women who like to have a smooth look and coverage, especially when the underwear is not lined and you're relying on the gusset lining to keep everything smooth and happy looking down there, you know what I mean? So it's important to understand how you want those seam lines to be done in that area. So if you don't want to have a gusset or any kind of weirdness happening, you're going to need to consider what kind of fabric you're using. If it's really thin, you're going to see right through it, and you're going to see every line and gap and roll and hill on your lady parts, or your man parts if you're making briefs for yourself. Doesn't matter who you are, everyone can wear a brief. My dog could wear a brief.
Yeah, I don't think your dog would like it.
No, she wouldn't. She'd try and get out of it. But she's like 13 now, so I might have to make her some doggy briefs one day. She hasn't had any accidents, but you know, I'll make doggy pants and pad, you know, if I have to. All right, so back to this. I'm gonna figure out how long I want my gusset to be. So again, you have to measure yourself, and typically, you know, you can figure it out. If you put, where's the gusset in the back of the pants you're wearing to the front, I would say there to there. Now, did I start at the right spot? Right there. There. Six and a half to 6 3/4 inches for my gusset preference from front to back. Over here, where do I have my crotch length at? That's what it is, it's your crotch length. Total length of crotch is, oh, that's the total length from front to back. Natural waist to pant waist, front to back. Crotch depth, mid hip, 4 inches is what I have logged over here. So if I go back to remeasuring, I'm going to look in the mirror and back. It's 4. All right, so for the sake of the trouser block that I was making, I understand why the crotch depth is 4 inches. Because you don't want to have a massive, huge crotch with a lot of hang. So I made mine with like no ease, so it fits like a legging. Now, if you wanted some harem pants, your crotch depth's definitely going to have to change. But I'm not making harem pants. So where I'm at, I was at a 4. I measured a 6 and a half. I'm thinking maybe 5 and a half might be the good measurement to go in between. Again, so let's see, 5 and a half from there to there. I think I might do 5 3/4, honestly. All right, so let's make a note. You gotta have notes. I always advise that you write notes every time you sew. Kind of like cooking. That way, if you really like what you've made, you can replicate it. It takes longer, but in the long run, it takes less time because you documented everything you did, so you know how to do it again better. Okay, so I'm gonna call this the 5.1 brief pattern, and ideally when I do these videos it gets better and faster. It's just, this is literally my first time using this book. It just came in the other day. So number 1, I'm going to document A to B to C, vertical line equals center back. And A equals natural waste. B equals back gusset equals start of back crotch gusset seam. Can you check that phone? Oh, it's an 800 service. Okay. So then C equals the start of the front crotch gusset seam. See, if you don't take time to identify all your markings on your pattern and through your instructions, you're going to be lost, because it's highly unlikely that you're going to be doing this like every single day and remember. It's probably going to have some time in between when you do it again. Okay, so A to B to C, so I need to determine where B is. And so to determine where B is, because right now you have a line from A to C, you just need to figure out that gusset. So what did we say? We said that the crotch gusset equals 5 3/4 inch. So then what you just do is you go backwards and you're going to go to your C point and go up 5 3/4 inch, and then that will be the length of your crotch gusset. So find the ruler and mark it. So this is B. So now I have that. So then the number 2 thing is, once you've drawn your A to B to C, you've identified those, you're going to go measure and mark B. A to C, just above C. Okay, so you're going to measure and mark B on line A to C, just above C. Number 3. Kaylin, how you doing? Do you want me to come take a peek? Need anything? Water? You're okay? Let's see. That was a lot of work just to write out 2 instructions that weren't really that hard. I literally have a vertical line with 3 dots on it. But they are adequately measured dots, I must say. Square out lines from A, B, and C. And mark E, F, and G. I feel like I'm reading this book that I read to my kids about the alphabet, and the letters go up the coconut tree. And then A and B and C all come tumbling down with the scuffed knee. That's literally part of the book. Where'd that pen go? So we shall square them out. But how far? How far do you square it out, right? Well, let me tell you. Because she doesn't tell you up front. You can square it out for a mile, right? Before she tells you to stop. Basically, what you're going to do from line B, which is the bottom of your butt gusset, you're going to draw a horizontal line out, and it's going to stop at E. You're going to mark it E, and that's your hip. So you need to know from the center back to your hip measurement. And she is calling that AD is the waist. Yeah. Okay, so, oh wait. Don't you just love it when you finally start understanding stuff that's so confusing initially? So AD goes out. And you know what? I'm going to cut my brown paper off because I like to see where I'm at and I can't see my grid on the side so well for squaring it up. So if we do this, scissors. It's just a rough tear. It's all going to get trimmed up anyhow. Alright, so to make sure it doesn't move, we need some tape. I also advise that you make sure that your tape has a little end on it, a little tab to make it easier to pull off the table. And then over here, we're going to do that again. Thank you for calling the Paradox Parlor. This is Teresa. How can I help you? Robot caller. All right. Actually, just use a cutting wheel. Up there. Take it down. And the rest of my paper, I'm going to roll back up. A little Taco Bell coffee. And so now I can draw my horizontal squared outline from A And now square it out from B. And C needs to be squared out also, but not nearly as far. Like just a couple inches out from C squared out. That's going to be your crotch gusset, remember? So you don't need it to be as wide as your hip measurement. That would be awkward. It could be some cool harem style pants, but again, that's not today. Okay. Measure mark B on line A to both C. Horizontal line from A out. Natural waist divided by 4. Draw a horizontal line from A out to the right at a measurement of 1/4 the waist. And I'm going to put in a note for the natural waist because that's where I'm at. You have to use the measurement of the waist where you anticipate wearing this garment. So at the natural waist, I have it measurement of, oh, and that's the other thing, there's no tolerance, there's no ease on these. So like when I look at my measurements from when I made my trouser block sloper, my actual measurement of my natural waist is 30.5, as in 30 inches, 30.5 inches, 30.5. And the recommended tolerance is 1/2 inch. But and this, you're actually going to wind up removing tolerance. So, what we're doing, 30.5 divided by 4. I need my phone and I need, of course, I'm recording on my phone. So I'm going to get my calculator on my laptop. And we've got 7 inches, 7.625 inches. We're going to round that up to 7.65. So it's just under 7 3/4 inches, okay? So draw a horizontal line from A and out to the right at measurement of 1/4, which equals 7, and if we're looking at a ruler, backwards ruler, it's clear. So 7 3/4 inch from So I marked it at 7 5/8 inch. And that was again marked as line mark D. Okay, and so next 7 5/8 inch. Okay, number 4. draw a horizontal line. From B up to the right at the measurement of 1/4 the hip. Okay, so now here's where I have an issue. Are we drafting the front or the back? Let's check. The front. Alright, so here's the issue. So she has us drafting the front, and we didn't even get to label that. So on your line of A through C, mark that as your center front seam. I thought it was the center back, but I was wrong. It's the center front. Alright, so center front. Now here's the issue I have. Your front side of your body is different from your back side. So if you notice, different, right? So you're round, you're more round, you're less round. And when you just divide everything equally, that's not necessarily distributing the fabric in the correct areas of your body to be the most flattering, and your seams can look funky. So typically you have to reallocate just a little bit of your measurement of your body from the front to the back. And she's not having us do that, so I don't know if she just isn't including it, or if she's just thinking or believes or knows that the knit fabric is enough. And I suppose if your body was really symmetrical, it wouldn't be an issue at all. But for someone like myself, who has a round butt, it's going to push out more at the hip. So I don't want it to look funky and like be tight and overstretched across the rear and like too loose in the front. So that's something I'm going to have to adjust myself right now. And for someone else, you know, they could have other issues as well. So you need to be considerate of that and measure those spots. Measure the difference from this quarter section to this quarter section to this quarter section to this quarter section. You know what I'm saying?
Where's your iron?
Iron, most definitely. Let me go find it. All right. It still has water in it. Okay. There you go. Do you need
I have a
you got one? Because I have a board right here.
towel. Oh, really? Yeah, I have a towel, but
This way you could put it on the table and it won't mess up the table. And then you can like actually like press on it harder. Okay, let's see. So the hips, hippity doodads. Oh, another thing that you wouldn't think is a problem is, but when you're using rulers and measuring devices, check to make sure they all measure the same. Oh, yeah, that's a problem. I actually had to throw out an old tape measure because it was measuring consistently larger inches versus all my other rulers. I don't understand that. So maybe the material stretched out, but it was clearly causing some fit issues and inconsistencies when I'm pattern making, because you have multiple rulers that you're using for different jobs, and you want them all to measure the same. So, you know, keep your eye on that. Just check it. So, because I threw that one out, I'm going to use my wire ruler from the hip. Now, because it's a basic pattern, you have to decide where do you want your leg opening to be in relation to your hip. So she's got this up pretty high on the hip, and then later she has like some boy shorts that are drafted. I'm not even gonna worry about that right now. I'm just gonna stay with the brief pattern. We're getting off topic. Okay, so what was I doing? The hip. So if we look at the hip, and you know where your hip bone is, you can actually feel the point. That's not what we want. We want the widest part of your butt and your thigh. Right? We're right about here. So typically, if you come up again to your waist, top of thigh, body rise, length of crotch, hip length, side seam length, hip. On my hip, I have it at 37 3/4 inch. And the hip rise, if I understand it correctly, is when you sit down, the body rise. Yeah, that's what it is. Like when you sit, I'm going to sit on a saddle chair just so you can see it, but you're supposed to sit on a flat surface. So when you sit down and your butt's on the chair, a flat, hard chair, you're going to measure from your waist to the hard object that your butt is sitting on. And that determines that side seam length. Okay? So from here, because you're not going to wear most likely your underwear that far down, and that's more of a boy short brief, we're going to allocate that bottom length up just a little bit so that we'll have, you know, from right about here, which is right about, if you take where your crotch is and your leg attaches here, and your leg attaches at the highest part of your body, you can see that curve, that's where we're going, and up to here. So, come from here, start your measurement there, go all the way up to the natural waist, or wherever your waist is that you want. And I'm going to say mine's right about here. I'm looking at 6 1/4 inches. Let me go double check it in the mirror. I'll be right back. Eight. Seven and a half. All right, 8, 7 and a half, 8. We're gonna go with the 8 because that's what I measured it on the last time, and I like that. And I was already at 7 and a half today, so we're just gonna stay with that. A little extra coverage is not a bad thing. You can always take it away. So what would you? And she had hers marked out at. She doesn't actually have a measurement. It just says your waist divided by 4 times 90%. So, measurement of 1/4. Okay. I just don't like that. You know what? I think I skipped ahead. I was still missing the waist measurement. That measurement I just did about this, I skipped the whole measurement from here to here. So, we're looking at like 8. And if we look again on the waist, I was just marking it 6 5/8 at the top of the waist. And then the hip, what did I say? It was going to be, that's what it was. Still 8. What do you know? Alright. It's funny. That's 8 and that's 8. So that can be confusing, you think. That's the side seam at 8, and then from side seam to center front seam, or center front line, 8. So we'll come over here and we shall mark B outward 8. And she called that one E. And then what I'm going to do is drop a vertical line. Do we do that? From here to here. Yeah, she did. Okay, so all she did then was just, she drew a slightly vertical diagonal line from D to E. I don't know if she, yeah, she does later, she shapes it. She shapes later. Okay, so draw a horizontal line from B out to the right at a measurement of 1/4 of the hip equals 8 inches. But she's got that times 90% thing. All right, so times 90%, 0.9. I think she would like have it, say you have to actually subtract it, but she doesn't. I think she just assumes you know that after you do the multiplication times 90% that you're just going to subtract it. So the waist, if you subtract it, I have it at 6 5/8. So subtract that. Oh, yeah. I think it's already 112. Shoot. Yeah. All right, so I got a client at 1:30 for fitness today, and she's going to do the pole class. Can I help you pull all of it into your car? Yeah.
Oh, actually.
Oh, I disappeared. My class was over with my client, Ms. Caitlin. So there's a free sewing session, like freestyle. So she comes in and she brings her project and works on it. And I actually am gonna have to cut this one off. I have a new client coming in for a pole fitness session right on the other side. And I will have to continue this drafting session later. Who would have thought making pole fashion was so time consuming? But when you're a nerd like I am and you really enjoy understanding the process, That's what it is. You know, I really want to make things that are unique, special, and top quality, and they last, they fit, they look beautiful. If you're interested in what I'm doing and you kind of like to see what more wild and fun things I do with pole fitness, with sewing, I even do hair, you should follow me, subscribe to my channel, and I want to hear from you. What is something that you enjoy doing? What is something you wish you could do?